Hey, welcome back to another episode. Today, I just want to talk about a few different things that I personally have overcome and been going through recently that I think so many people probably can use this or can relate. I have been doing a lot of mindset work on forgiveness and healing from past trauma and just learning to let people be where they're at in their space and learning to just let them, right? Just let them be, let them do their thing. Like it has been such an interesting journey by shifting this mindset that I thought it was worth sharing. Um, a little backstory on me. I was, um, abused in a few different ways throughout my life, from, child molestation, incest, to rape, to domestic violence, assaults, um, just lots of trauma. And it started when I was 3 years old, and I didn't really understand the whole thing. I mean, I'm 45 now, and as I am doing mindset work and more meditation and working on myself and really trying to be my best self today, I'm digging more into those roots of my life, like the roots, what started the trauma. And it's not an easy process. Like, I'm just going to be honest with you. I have been working on, personal development and mindset work 5 years as of December. It's not something that just happens overnight. Everybody's different. And so that's something I'll tell you is like your journey is your journey. And so for me, I really, this last year, I hired a life coach, and she's really helped me just really see things more clear and be able to identify those things that I'm afraid of or that I have held on to that aren't mine. They're not mine to hold on to. They're not serving anything in my now, my present, or my future self. And it was so crazy because you sometimes don't realize the baggage you're carrying around until you start doing the work on yourself. And then it's hard because you feel like it's really hard because you're going through this baggage of stuff that you just don't really want to deal with. You don't want to relive it. You don't want to resurface it. And what you don't understand is that until you identify it and you acknowledge it and then you let it and then you forgive it and you let it go, you'll hold on to it forever. And I didn't realize that. And it's like a dirty little secret, or like this little, like I said, a little box. You put a ribbon on it and a bow and you throw it in your closet and you hope you never have to look at it again. Well, that was me. And I was 40 years old when I made the decision that I was going to change that trajectory of my life. I didn't know it would be a ripple effect and it would actually impact and change my entire family. I just knew that I was fed up and I was tired of being where I was at. I felt really stuck. I felt like I, didn't have a passion or purpose anymore. So I was a teacher and a caregiver, and I just loved taking care of people. I was a job coach, like I had all these wonderful things in my career and in my lifetime. And I, catered and bartended and waitress. And like, I don't know, I had a variety of things that I tried to see what I loved. And I really just fell in love with people. And I realized that it didn't matter what I was doing as long as I was uplifting people and loving on them and encouraging them, then I was doing what I love. Like that was my purpose. And I really didn't understand that. Right. And so through this journey, I've realized that it doesn't matter what I do as long as I'm impacting lives in a healthy, positive way. And so teaching people to live most authentically, right? And to be their healthiest version of themselves. And I realized that that was really where my purpose and my passion lied. And so I look back and I see all those different careers. Well, they're here at a point where my health took a toll because of a domestic violence assault in 2009, not one, but two of those assaults. And I didn't realize that turning point would stop me from being able to do the physical careers that I did, the teaching, the love, the caring for other people, and to partnering up with people who have disabilities, and helping them with their day-to-day lives, and like just really encouraging and doing the things I truly did think that that was my purpose, right? That those things they limited me, but that was who I was. And I was an athlete for years. And so from the time I was 3 years old all the way until I could no longer, I literally played sports, all different kinds of sports, and I love them. And in 2012, I started noticing like some little things that were going on, and I didn't realize that they had been going on since 2009, but they just weren't as apparent. And I was an alcoholic, so I was drinking, so it was like really hard to pinpoint. But in 2011, 2010, back up, 2010, my the company I worked for was dissolving that branch in our town, and that office, and they were going to be moving to other locations. And they invited me to go to those other locations. However, my lower back was locking up, and I had been getting stuck like on the weekends. One weekend I actually got stuck in my bed, in almost fetal position, and couldn't get out, couldn't roll over, couldn't do nothing. So I was stuck in my room with the door locked. A friend actually had to break through my window to help me. It was so scary. And it was about a week or two later, I found out about the company dissolving, and I was invited to go. And I had to take a serious look because I literally had like some time off from this injury, and I didn't realize what it had done. And so I ended up ending my job early, and they were going to exit us anyways. So they exited me, and I started my unemployment. Well, at the time, I didn't realize that I needed to like look into more further things. And so it was a few months, probably like 5 months later, when I finally took more action to get the help I needed. But I struggled with this injury for so long, and I didn't know it was kind of that severe. And then things seemed to heal, and I seemed fine. I got back to riding my bike. I got back to doing all my normal routine. So I felt like things were better. But what I didn't understand was that they were not. And then I got pregnant with my son in 2012. And when I went to have him 10 days before delivering, he ruptured my L4-5 disc into my left hip and my sciatica nerve. He was over 10 pounds. And then 10 days later, the midwife, she made me deliver him naturally for a 12-hour delivery, permanently disabling me. And so living with those injuries, it was really hard for me to see past the career I had, what I loved doing. Um, and I didn't realize that the parts that I loved about it were the people. And so um, I felt really useless for a while. And I had to have surgery 13 months after he was born. I had to have a spinal cord surgery to help fix it because I lost all my bladder control, and I was only 34 years old. I had a lot of people not listening to me during that. Medical people, family, people didn't believe it was as bad as it was. And so when the surgeon talked to me, he made it really clear that there was some deterioration in my spine, and showed me the injuries. And so I gave it to God. Just quite honestly, I gave it to God, and I went through it. I had a lot of panic attacks, I had a lot of anxiety during that time period in my life, and I really just was struggling with my mental health. And so it was a strain on my relationships. It was a strain on everybody around me. And the part that I just remember the most was I held on to the feelings and the emotions of what other people projected. And so I became really bitter. I became really bitter, and I became really, upset at my circumstances. And then it called more problems in, which is like a magnet. You attract what you put out. And I didn't realize that. And so I can look back at those times in my life where I could have done things differently if my thoughts and my feelings had changed, and I had a different perspective, right? And my words and my thoughts, if I would have, had a different perspective on the situation. And I finally I spent 2 years getting properly diagnosed. I had to go through 20 plus tests to do that, to get all the proper diagnosis for my traumatic brain injury and my spinal cord injuries and just all the things going on with my body. And I never really focused on the mental health side. Um, I had my kids in counseling, so I was learning things through the counselor right along with them, which was really helpful. Especially, you're trying to manage yourself and trying to manage your kids who also have trauma. And so it was a really hard time to navigate because I felt so overwhelmed by having to do everything else, plus my health, that my physical health, that it was hard to just focus on my mental health and what I had going on. So I kind of kept that stuff locked up and just kind of moved through, carrying a lot of baggage with me that didn't belong to me. And it wasn't until 2017 that my granddaughter was diagnosed with leukemia that March, and she was 9 months old, and it was my oldest daughter's very first baby, and I was just struggling with my mental health, and I wanted to see a counselor, and I dumped on him for 45 minutes, and then he spent 15 minutes just reminding me that, like, all the things that happened to me, I didn't have to hold on to those things, and it is what it is. Like, it's just, if it's shit, it's shit. If it's good, it's good. And that's kind of what he had told me at the time. And at first, like, that was a great feeling. Like, it just is what it is. And it's all good for you, whether you see it now or not. And I just walked out of there feeling like better because I had told him things that I had never told anybody else in my entire life. And I was scared because I didn't know what to do after saying those things out loud because they really hurt. And they really were like problems that I had not dealt with. And I was still holding on to that baggage. So I walked out of that counseling session, never going back, but still holding on to that baggage. And so um, we went through, and that Christmas, I got sober. That Christmas, I stopped drinking alcohol. I sobered up. I really didn't drink that whole year, but I still had the mindset of an alcoholic, and I still would have drank and just had other reasons why I couldn't. And so Christmas Day was my decision day. It was the day that my mind and my body and my spirit and my soul all said enough. And so that was my quit day. And I realized that my kids and my family like needed me sober, and I was a better person when I was sober. And so from that, I started really working more on my health and myself. And I started really just getting more in tune. And I realized that I was starting to get better and not bitter. And so that bitterness soon changed into a better attitude, a better perspective. And I realized that, life could be better for us, right? Like I really could make a difference. And so we battled with our granddaughter for several years, and for a couple of years. And so she lost her battle July of 2019. And that was a really prominent time in my life too, because I witnessed and seen things that I'm so grateful that the Lord showed me. And I'm just so humbled that I was open to seeing those things and being open to receive them. The hardest part was not being able to fix it. And I felt like a fixer. My whole life, I felt like I had to fix other people because I figured if I was fixing them, I wouldn't have to fix myself. It really was just a distraction from me from me working on myself, because it was scary to work on myself, because the feelings and the thoughts that was having and the things that I had experienced in my lifetime weren't really pleasant. And I couldn't remember any of the good memories because all of the bad were just flooding in all the time. And so I really struggled with that. And it was really hard to shift that perspective. But I started working on that when my granddaughter passed away that July of 2019. I had promised the Lord that I would do anything and everything that He said that was called upon me, and that I would literally, like, I would give my life to Him, and I did. And it was a huge step for me because I spent a few months in depression, and He pulled me out of that depression. I In December of 2019 was offered an opportunity by a random girl on social media to make an extra income for my family, and I didn't realize that company would be such an incredible blessing in our lives. I didn't realize that they would actually change the trajectory of my future and my family's future. I had no idea. I actually was struggling with Christmas that year and really didn't want to shop, to be honest with you. It was just that really depressed and really sad. It was our first Christmas without our granddaughter, and everybody was just falling apart. And I felt like our family was falling apart, and I needed something that would help us get back into our lives and that would help us heal. And so I actually spent my Christmas money. I was broke, put this the opportunity, I put that money that it took to invest in on my credit card and was just like, I'm gonna do this, and I don't know what it is, and I have no idea, but I'm gonna give it a whirl. Little did I know it was the same opportunity I had turned down 6 other times. And so this was the seventh time I'd been offered it by different people. It was a different person. And I said yes to this random girl. And it was just because I was ready. More than anything, it was because I was just ready. And I didn't know at the time that I was ready, but God knew I was ready. And so when I joined, I started showing up and doing things, and I realized that this was something that I could do right from my phone. So even though I had these things going on with my health, and even though like I felt like I didn't have a purpose, I could now start doing this and I could start feeling better about myself. And I didn't know they were going to have me work on my mindset and on my personal development. And so I just started letting the things that were offered to me encourage me to do better. And so now I had not just trying to do it by myself, but now I had a community of people who were doing it together. So it's the same people that they were doing the same things that I want to do. And so soon I started finding my purpose. I started being able to feel more confident and lose the weight that I had gained from the depression and from all the stress. I started being able to take care of my health and, using the products that they had offered that were plant-based that actually helped me feel better. So like there's just things I started doing for myself. Self-care was something I never did before. And all of a sudden I started doing it. I started realizing that I can't fix people and that it's not my job to fix them, but to love them unconditionally through the process of them fixing themselves. I realized that my mindset and my thoughts were definitely out of whack and they were negative. And so I started rewiring my mindset and my verbiage, changing my behaviors. I started doing things that would actually align with my goals that would help me get to those goals. And then I started doing things that made me feel good. I realized that I had put life on hold and I wasn't doing things that I truly enjoyed. And I realized that that was actually hindering more than helping. And so I made the decision that I was going to do what it took to better my life and my family's lives. Each day that I did something for myself and my business and my family, I felt good about it. And I actually felt like I was gaining some sense of life back. And it was great because if I didn't feel good, I wasn't pressured to be on the clock to work. I was able to work it in my schedule around my life, around my time. And it just took a few hours in my day. And I think that was the thing that really changed the most for me was having that freedom of knowing that I could provide again for my family. And I could do a little something for them, right? And then I realized that, because of that, I was able to make my family a full-time family and brought my partner home with us. And it was such a blessing because there were times when I physically couldn't do something and I would have to wait for him to get off his job. And by the time he got off his job, he was too tired to help us at home or too tired to do anything that I needed. So this way it allowed us to be able to have that freedom of him being able to not be drained and worn out and hurting his back. He has a back injury that we're trying to not make worse, right? And also be able to be there for his family and feel productive at the same time and give him that sense of being able to work on his dreams and his passions and his desires too. And so it was just a win-win for us. And it just became something that showed me along the way that you can't change people, but you can give them an opportunity and the tools for them to change themselves. The hardest part about wanting to be a fixer is that you see so much potential in somebody else, but they don't always see it in themselves. And so for me, being able to share that this opportunity allowed me, it gave me the tools, and I had to make the decision to show up for myself. Once I made the decision to show up for myself and I started showing up for myself consistently, then I started realizing that it allowed other people to see that they can show up for themselves too. And then we show up for each other, right? And so it just is so incredible when you change the perception of the lens. When you see something that you don't like, you get to fix that. You have the opportunity to do better. You have the opportunity to improve yourself or improve that situation. And for a long time, I didn't feel equipped to do that. But what really changed was that I stopped trying to control all of the situation, and I gave it to God, and I let him take the in charge, like be in charge and take the reins. I made the decision that I would pray before I did something to see if it was right. If it didn't feel good and it didn't bring me peace, I didn't do it. If it made me feel ill and gross and disgusting, I knew it wasn't aligned with my purpose and my passion. And so you have to be honest with yourself. So many people will tell you if it feels disgusting and it feels that's just fear, keep going. I don't believe that anymore. I learned that you really do want to listen to your energy, and that intuitive feeling that you're feeling of it is a gut instinct. And that intuition is telling you that it's not right for you and it's not aligned to your goals and your dreams and your desires and what God wants for you. And if you do it, it can set you back, and it can make things take longer because it's not attracted to you in the right way. It's a negative emotion, a negative feeling, and those things are the opposite of your magnet, right? And so when your magnet is really turned on, you will feel peace and love when you do something. You will feel so much calmness. You will feel so good about it that you will know it came from God. And anything that brings you the pain or the suffering or any of that, you have to realize that those feelings, they can be there, but you need to have the gratitude and the joy still. And you can't have one or the other. You have to decide that even in the tough stuff and the chaos and the contrast, you're going to turn on gratitude. You may not be able to turn on joy right away, but you're going to work toward turning that joy on, right? And your energy, your lamp, your light, people are going to see that. They're going to notice that. That's going to encourage them to do the same thing because it's a magnet. The people who are doing it are going to align and attract to us. And so, what is your magnet saying to you today? Like, are you putting out into the universe and putting energy out that you are somebody who struggles, or everything is hard, right? Is everything not good? The world is bad. There's so much bad stuff. Or are you that person that's putting out that the world is amazing and there's so much incredible joy, so many things to be grateful for, and that you are abundant, that you are infinite potential, that you are God's highest creation? Like, what are you putting out and projecting that is attracting more of what you want? Are you speaking life over money and love and happiness and joy and prosperity? Are you speaking about what you want instead of what you don't want? Because what you speak is what will come. So if you're saying I'm broke, you're going to stay broke. But if you're saying that I'm abundant and money loves you and attracts to you, and it's not greedy and selfish to love money, it's a currency. It's something that everybody uses to get what they need to get for life and for things like groceries and bills. And like those things are beautiful to pay, those things are wonderful. And for you to be able to do that, and instead of saying that groceries are too high or too expensive or everything's expensive, blaming it on inflation, instead, speak about what you see and desire. I'm so grateful that I can purchase these things and have what I need for my family. I'm so grateful that I get to go choose what I want at the grocery store and it's not chosen for me. I am so grateful that I get to be able to create and enjoy incredible food and be able to bless my family. I'm so grateful that I have electricity and running water and a warm home. And, like these are the things that you have to think about. I'm so grateful I woke up this morning. Like, what are you speaking life over yourself and others? And I think that that's part of letting people be and letting them do, is letting them realize that the words and the thoughts matter. And when we're trying to forgive and we're trying to let things be as they are, or we're trying to like live in the present, and then like working toward our future self and seeing our future self right now. Like, who are we 5 years, 10 years from now at the very end of our journey? Like, how are you going to feel? Is that person going to worry so much? Is she or he going to be somebody who doubts everything or be afraid? Or is she going to be confident and loving and fierce and courageous and bold and beautiful? Like, what life are you speaking over? And it's the life now that's going to create the then. But if you're focused on the past and the what used to be, or the good times that there used to be, or how I wish life was like it was back then, guess what? It's not going to come to fruition, because you're living in that past, and that past is already done. It's over. You can't change it. It is what it is. And now you should be living for the now and the what's coming, right? And people don't realize that if you are constantly, so for example, the other day, um I realized that I was still holding on to the very root of my trauma. I didn't realize it was the root of my trauma. I didn't realize it was what literally was stopping me from doing anything in my life, and in my present and my future, because I was trapped in that past. Okay. So what I mean by that is, I was molested when I was 3 years old by a family member, and I have spoken about it to, people in my life, and I didn't feel validated. I felt like I was owed an apology, or being told that I needed to tell somebody I forgave them. I felt like I was held hostage in this memory and this nightmare, for decades, and quite honestly, I was. And so I do Bible studies every morning, and I'm reading the Joyce Meyer Everyday Life Bible. It's incredible. You can get it on Amazon. Not if that's a free plug. Like, I just love it. And I just she's a survivor, and so I can relate to her story. I can relate to what she shares. And so as I was reading Matthew, I was called to read Matthew. And as I was reading Matthew, I believe chapter 5, it had talked about something in there, and it had been related to divorce. And I'm a two-time divorcee, and I always felt shame and guilt for this, being divorced twice, because I just really did. I don't know why. And then I read in the Bible how the reasons for divorce, well, they aligned with why I chose the divorces, because I chose both divorces, not the other way around. And so they aligned with that. And the Bible, where it's not sin and it's not shame or doubt, should be, like, it's him, like, saving you. It was Jesus saving me, and it was God's protection. And I didn't know that at the time. And now my partner today and I have been together for 12 years, and God showed me in a dream in second grade that we would be together, that he would be my soulmate, with our 4 kids. And so now that's came to fruition 12 years ago. And and just knowing that for 12 years I almost held our relationship in a hostage, in a way, until the other day, like literally until the other day. And it was because I had so much shame and doubt and guilt, for where I stood in my relationships after 2 divorces. And so just knowing that, like, the Bible had just those answers for me, and I was able to, and I've read Matthew a half a dozen times, but I wasn't evidently ready to understand that part of it. And so now that I was ready, my eyes were open, the veil was lifted, and I was able to understand it. And what clarity it gave me, what peace it gave me in knowing, how grateful I am for that protection from God, and just knowing that Jesus wiped away those sins and just healed me, completely. And here I was walking as if he hadn't, but he absolutely had from day one. And the other thing was, I had another moment where, um, an incident happened. I won't go into detail because I don't drop names as far as abusers. And so an incident happened where communication coincided through third party, and I um I got the conversation afterwards from the third party, and I just, my stomach sunk, because the abuser asked how I was doing and how my family was. And the things, that the conversation that had transpired between them, I knew, um that there was no accountability. for any of the actions. There was no accountability, and it had been wiped under the rug as far as all of everybody in the situation was concerned, but me. But it happened to me, not to them. And so I had a lot of not anger this time. I thank God, no anger. But I had a lot of frustration. And so I my three younger kids were in the room, and they could feel my energy and feel my tone. And they said, "Mom, are you okay?" And I said, "No, but I will be." And I expressed to them why I wasn't okay in that moment. And I was honest with them. And my youngest said, "I've never met that person." And I said, "You never will." Thank God. Like, that's just how I feel about the situation. And then I realized that I needed to take myself outside to nature. And so instead of getting into this emotional roller coaster conversation with my kids, and they're older, so it's like to have those conversations is important because I don't want them to ever feel like they have to be victimized. And I want them to know the difference in red flags and healthy stuff. And also they're healing from their own trauma, and they deserve to know sometimes that we like, even as a parent, I struggle. And so I went outside and I excused myself, and I went and took my sandals off, and I stood in the grass and I just grounded myself. And I just, in that moment, I I asked the Lord one question, and then he responded. I said, "How come none of them acknowledge and have, like, I haven't even gotten an 'I'm sorry that happened to you'? How come there's no forgiveness? How come there's no, like, I've been how do I explain this? My feelings and my emotions weren't validated. What happened to me wasn't validated. And how come? Like, I don't understand. Like, I've been chewing on the poison this whole time, and I've been swallowing and drinking the poison for 42 years. And there's still no validation. There's still no apology. And in that moment, I heard the Lord say to me, "Hey, yesterday you asked me for these answers." You asked me for clarity, and you asked me to show you these things, and you were ready because you want to let them go and you're going to give them to me. So why are you upset? I gave you the answers. Clearly, I gave you the answers. Every single thing you asked me yesterday, I answered today. Why are you upset about it? It's time to let them go. You said you were going to let them go. And I stood there for a minute, and I put my sandals back on, and I went inside. And then a friend called, and we went for a drive, and she and I were talking, and it was just clarity in that moment as I was sharing with her, like, my feelings. And I realized that I don't need an apology. I have to provide the forgiveness, or I'll continue to swallow the poison and eat it and be poisoned every day of my life if I don't. And it truly was time to let it go. That spirit doesn't make things up. Like, God knew that I was ready, and I know I'm ready for that to not be in my now and to not be in my future. And I get to decide, but I have to lean on him first and let him show me that that's the right decision. I can't live life for myself anymore. I have to live life for him. And a lot of people struggle with that. And I was one of those people. I'm not a religious person, but I'm very much spiritual. And my relationship with God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit are my number one priority in my life. I put them first. And And I know what Jesus has done for me, and the healing work that's been done. And so it was in that moment where I told God, thank you. And I told him, thank you. I told him that I give him everything and I release it all. I did have a talk with my partner. Him and I took some time together, and I asked him if I could talk to him as well. And I told him how I felt and how it was time to let it go. And he was so supportive and he was so loving. And I'm just so grateful for that, because he knows how some things have hindered our relationship in the past, and what I've overcome and what he had to overcome his own trauma too. And prior relationships can give you trauma too, and so you don't realize, anything can be traumatic for somebody, and everybody's different. For me, I'd held on to the root of this, and I realized that because I held on to that one thing since I was 3 years old, I actually attached all the other trauma things to it and just piled it up. So it became this giant, like, rubber band ball of problems. And I realized that I would change. And I want to express to you that the moment I let it go and I just let them be, and I just gave it all to God and I released it, and I just unconditionally loved every single part and every single thing, that very moment, I kid you not, that very moment, the peace came within. And the next morning when I woke up, I felt like a brand new person. I felt like a brand new soul. And the comfort that surrounded me in my sleep that night. And I was scared I would have nightmares. I'm not going to lie. I was so afraid I was going to have nightmares that night. But I asked God to take it all from me, to just give me his peace and his love, and to heal my heart and my soul and my mind and my spirit and my physical body. And I asked him very specifically for the healing work to be done. And I felt that the next day. The next day I felt so much peace. And then I realized I would never talk about it again, except for this one moment to share with you how grateful I am that I hold the tools and the power to heal from wounds that I promise you I never expected to heal from. And it is just such a reward and a blessing when you just let them be. You just let them do their thing, and you focus on yourself and you focus on what you're going to do for yourself within, and how you're going to make this situation be something that you share to inspire hope and love and courage and faith in knowing what God does to restore us, knowing how we are infinite potential and we are his children, and the love that we get when we let Christ in. And that is the parts that I get to share. That's the parts that I get to love people about and just encourage and remind them that what you go through is for you, whether you see it or not. Even if you don't get something, it was for you. If you get it, it's for you. And your mess is always going to be your message. Your mess will always turn out to be your message. What you're going through right now is temporary. It's how you mold and shape yourself in the process, the integrity and the character and the courage and the love and the faith that you gain through those situations that create this incredible soul, and that vibrates you higher, that creates a life and a legacy, and just so much love comes out of our healing, that I think so many of us are afraid to heal because we're afraid, because we don't know any different. See, I only knew survival mode. I only knew suffering and pain. I only knew anger and bitterness. I only knew fear, right? I only knew how to be afraid. I knew how to start something but not finish it, right? Like I look at all of the patterns of my life and I realize that it was those things and those trauma points that held me hostage and bondage. But now I get to be infinite potential. Do you realize that I realized something the other day? My life coach said it, and I was like, oh, mind blown. Do you realize we were created in joy and love? We were created. Joy is our natural state. We were created in love. When we were created, love existed in there. Okay, whether anybody sees that or not, and joy is our natural state. All those other emotions and feelings we learn. Those are learned behavior, but our natural state is joy. How many can say they live a joyous life every single day? I know that up until the other day, I didn't realize how good joy felt. I did not realize how good joy felt. If you look at the movie Inside Out, the first emotion that existed was joy. Little blue-haired character. She was the very first emotion that the little girl had in the movie. That right there is because joy is our natural state. And then as we get older, you notice the little girl would add an emotion, right? And emotions would come in. And you go to the next movie and new emotions come in. It's because those emotions got tied up with the outside world and things that were going on around us, people and things, right? That it changed the natural state of our bright vibration, the natural state of our energy, which is joy. And I did not even understand it until my life coach said it was our natural state the other day. And so keep that in mind. Like, are you at your natural state with joy, or are you with anxiety, or are you with anger or fear or disgust? You know, how are you speaking about people and things and all the stuff going on around you? Are you too focused about what's going on in Hollywood and what's going on in, like, you know, all the freaking places all over the world, all these natural disasters, like all these things that are happening? It's okay to have empathy, but if you get caught up in those things, it can deteriorate your natural state of joy. And it can bring on the fear and the sadness and the this and the that. And it can change. It changes the trajectory of our rewiring of our brain, and it changes those emotions within us. And we have to remember that joy is our natural state. And we're unconditional beings. We are unconditional love. We are infinite potential. And I think that that was something that I didn't recognize. And I was allowing other people and things to hinder my emotions. And I would say, you hurt my feelings. I can't believe you said that to me. I can't believe you did that. When in fact, I allowed them to hurt my feelings. I allowed them to upset me. Just because they did something, I didn't have to react. You get to choose whether you get to respond or react, or don't do either one. Not responding is a response. It's not a reaction, but it's definitely a response. And it's okay to not respond to things that aren't healthy for you, or people that aren't healthy for you. If they don't bring you a natural state of joy, you get to choose. Do I want that? And you're going to have moments where they're not going to be the greatest, but you can still have gratitude, right? And if you can't find gratitude in it, why are you doing it? And that's just what I have learned. If it doesn't sit right, it doesn't feel good in the pit of my stomach, I know. If it wells up my throat when I go to try to do it, I need to ask myself, why am I feeling this feeling? What is this feeling that I'm feeling? And why is it there? Be honest with myself. And then I can work on that to see, is this something that's aligned with where I'm headed? Or is this a distraction? Or is this something that that I'm just fear has brought, right? Is this something that am I pivoting that should pivot with? Like, there's lots of ways, but you have to self-assess yourself. You have to be willing to be honest with yourself so that you can allow those things that are around you to not bother you. So you can let it be. I hope this has helped somebody y'all today. We will touch more on this, but I don't want to make this entirely too long. I know I've been going for a little while. I could talk about this forever. It's a really awesome topic that I've been really, really studying on recently because it's where I'm at in my day to day. But I absolutely am so grateful that I get to do what I do and help you. And I hope this just leaves you with so much love and light today. Go out and make a difference in the world.